Hi everyone, I'm here with Peter Bloom today. Peter, thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course, could you start off telling us a bit about your work and what your job entails on a day-to-day basis?
My work is basically at the intersection between community organizing and telecommunications. Uh, and basically, I work with an organization that I helped to start around 10 years ago called Rhizomatica. And we work with communities around the world to build telecommunications networks that they own and manage. We mainly work in places that don't have existing coverage or connectivity in indigenous communities. So we help, like I said, communities build networks. We also help those communities advocate for more inclusive telecommunications policies and regulations.
That's wonderful. How did you become involved in your field, and how would you say you've gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a circuitous route. I have a bachelor's from Penn in urban studies, so that kind of helped me understand how people organize themselves and how we can advocate for social justice. I would say was the biggest relationship between my formal education and what I do. I also now have a master's degree in rural development. Um, Yeah, I mean, basically, I was working with different communities around the world who were using cell phones basically to document different things that were happening to them, human rights abuses, environmental rights abuses. And we kind of got to a point where it seemed like we needed to figure out how to have our own infrastructure, so have our own ways of passing information around that didn't rely on commercial networks. That's kind of really how it started with some projects that we had in Nigeria, previous work that I had done in Philadelphia with immigrant communities, and then also in Mexico, where kind of our most important projects are working with community radio stations and other communities who were just figuring out how to get connected and use the power and the tools of their telephone, of the internet to advocate for their rights.
Yeah, that's amazing. You touched on this a bit, but how would you say your career path has changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, even while I was at Penn, I was always involved in organizing work. I started a nonprofit in Philadelphia called Juntos, which is still going, that works on immigrant rights in South Philly. And I've always kind of tried to keep that as my guiding, excuse me, as my guiding star, just this idea of social justice, the idea of working with communities to solve local problems. Um, and yeah, I mean, technology, connectivity, cell phones, these things started becoming a big deal in everybody's life about 10, 15 years ago. And it just seemed like a good kind of fusion, a good way to use these new tools that were coming around and that are still evolving and link it together with the social justice work that I was doing in different places. So in that sense, things have kind of feels like one straight trajectory, but adding in this technological component is something that definitely, I would say, kind of took me into a whole new realm of things.
Definitely. That's amazing. You talked a bit about the idea of your North Star already, and what is something that orients you in the direction that you want to take for your career path. Could you talk a bit more about that, or anything else you'd like to add in what you've already shared?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's just been really trying to focus on working with people, like especially in technology. It's very easy to it's very easy to get kind of sucked into conversations about the technology itself and kind of assume that it's going to do good or it's going to work in a certain way or whatever. And I think that it's very hard sometimes for the world of technology to speak to communities that don't interface as much with technology. So kind of how to create that bridge between the two worlds, sort of indigenous communities, unconnected communities, underdeveloped communities, and the world of technology. They're very much kind of separate worlds in a lot of ways.
Right.
So how do you bridge between those worlds? So that's what I've tried to bring in and kind of not forget who this is for and not lose touch with those people, I guess, is kind of the easiest way to think about it. Stay in touch, stay close to the problem, as it were.
Definitely. What you brought up about the idea of bridging different visions and bridging between different two worlds, how would you say that ties in to how it's been difficult for you to become established in this field, or what challenges have you faced along the way?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the technology space, we're definitely um, coming with a different perspective than most other people. So it's definitely taken some years to get our ideas and to get our vision, not even accepted, but just kind of at the table with
Mm-hmm.
some of the other ideas and visions that are out there that are more business based or more kind of huge, humongous scale based. Um, that's a challenge. I mean, that I would say is the biggest kind of issue in terms of getting established. So I think that um, yeah, I mean, there's a few challenges. Another challenge is kind of doing innovation in under-resourced contexts is another thing that it's hard to do. It's hard to raise money for that. It's hard to kind of do technology in a non-profit way, I guess, is kind of the thing that I would say. So how to keep up somehow, how to not keep up. It's sort of like on one side you have people with billions and billions of dollars developing technology for very specific
Mm-hmm.
use cases that are massive in scale, and then you have other folks like us trying to develop technology for, I don't know, indigenous communities in the Amazon rainforest who are in a completely different reality most of the time. So there's not like a huge path to billions of dollars in terms of what we're doing, and that's not what we're trying to do. So how do you raise the funds? How do you get talented people to work on the project when you're kind of in the shadow of these much larger efforts, I
Definitely.
guess. So yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that perspective. Looking back at your undergraduate years at Penn, and since audience for this interview, many of them might be Penn students, Penn faculty. Did you participate in any activities that led you to work in the public interest sector? Were there any classes that you think have
Mhm.
best prepared you for your career and where you are right now?
Sure. I mean, at Penn, I didn't exactly envision I'd be doing this, so I didn't take any engineering or any computer science or anything classes. I'm actually not particularly technically minded. I think urban studies was a great fit in the sense that it allowed me to pursue a lot of the social justice work that I was doing. Um, that's kind of confusing. I actually started doing the social justice work first and then decided on majoring in urban studies
Mm-hmm.
as it gave me the most flexibility. Uh, and beyond that flexibility, I was exposed to a lot of ideas and things that were incredibly helpful as I was doing my work in Philadelphia. So yeah, I mean, I think it was always kind of there. I don't know if I wouldn't say Penn instilled that in me. I think it did provide me with the tools to do it better, and also, like I said, the flexibility and the freedom to pursue what I was doing. So, for example, I actually ended up graduating from the general studies um, side of Penn, not from the School of Arts and Sciences. So I would take night classes, I would take summer classes, um, in order to be able to do the work and continue kind of that commitment that I was um, that I had in the community in South Philadelphia. So yeah, I mean, definitely, the people at Penn, there's everything at Penn. You can find the world's expert on basically any topic. So I definitely was more dealing with folks who were talking about, the city, racial justice, social justice,
Mm-hmm.
urban planning, these kinds of things. And then I also kind of peppered in other, just sort of general interests like the history of capitalism or the history of, this and that just helped to round out my, intellectual ability to engage with these topics.
Definitely, that's wonderful. What advice would you give to undergraduates who are considering maybe going specifically into the work you're doing, or in general careers in public interest technology, public interest sector, policy, et cetera?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So the first piece of advice is do it, go for it, take the leap. I think it's a super interesting. It's a super interesting time for technology, and it's a super interesting and also concerning time for the world in a lot of ways. And I think some of the big problems that we're facing in the world right now, global warming, racial justice, all these things that are, it's hard to deny their importance in our society, both in the United States and elsewhere. I think technology can play a role in that, does play a role in that, many times not a great role. So how can we turn the tables? How can we actually ensure that technology helps us solve the problems of the world and not just create more problems? And I think that this idea of doing public interest technology, having people who can engage with the technology side and can engage with the social side is incredibly important. And that there be more people who are able to do that, who have like a solid foundation in that from an educational perspective, and then are able to get the experiences to kind of take a more well-rounded approach to these issues and not sort of have them siloed and segmented off. So yeah, I think in order to be a well-rounded public interest technologist, you need to be a well-rounded person, basically, is kind of the advice I would take. So I don't think it's all academics. I think it's, again, getting out there, seeing the world, seeing what people are up to, and being able to bring those perspectives in, and always kind of approach everything you do with some sort of humility and openness to listen, and not be kind of imposing your own views on things, but really first take the time to listen and see what's going on out there.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that advice. You talked about this a bit in your answer just now about how public interest technology and your work connects to current issues and why there is an important relationship there. Could you talk a bit more about why you think public interest technology is important? Why should people care about it? And especially the time we're in now with COVID, for example, how you see public interest tech playing into that?
Yeah, totally. Like you said, I was kind of alluding to it earlier. I think, again, technology plays such an outsized role in our lives, and now with COVID, even more. Like, you guys go to school over Zoom now. And I think that there's a lot of questioning that has to happen about where we're going as a society and as a sort of a technologically driven society. And we need people to be able to ask those questions and demand answers that are kind of sufficiently detailed and clear and reasonable. So I think right now we're living in a world where a lot of the kind of digital technologies that surround us, we as a society, we haven't fully grappled with what they should do. I think we're fairly clear what they are doing, and are trying to figure out, well, what they are doing. Some of that's good and some of that's bad, and how do we kind of amplify the good parts and mitigate or reduce the harm of the bad parts. I think we're still not totally clear on how to do that. And technology has brought very kind of substantial changes to our lives in the last even just 10 years. It always has. You look at the history of human development, there's always kind of the aspect of technology in there, but I think very recently, with the rise of the internet and kind of this interconnection we have around the globe, there's been sort of an acceleration of the role of specific technologies in shaping society, but that we haven't fully grappled with, that we haven't fully figured out what to do. So again, I think going into public interest technology allows us to make proposals, allows us to question and be critical, and come up with better solutions, better ideas for our societies.
Definitely. Going back to your work specifically, and now in the context of COVID that we're talking about, how do you think your career and work in this certain time we're in has shifted to the virtual setting?
Yeah, like most of my time that I spent having meetings, a lot of that was happening over
Right.
teleconferencing or Zoom or whatever anyway, because I work with people all around the world. So I would say we were all, that transition hasn't felt that strange. I think it has been the ability to go and visit communities has become more difficult. We found ways to
Hmm.
do it, and we have been doing it, but it's a lot more kind of clunky with all the protocols and stuff. Um, so yeah, I think that on this on a practical level, that parts of it have just kind of been what they've always been, kind of online meeting with people around, and some of it's been more difficult from a kind of issue like we deal with connectivity, and mainly our focus is on people that don't already have connectivity. And the pandemic has basically, I think, raised a lot of awareness, uh, both on the side of the people who are connected and want to help people who aren't connected, and on the side of people who aren't connected and who wish to be connected, that the importance of doing it, but also the importance of doing it properly, doing it in the right way. So I definitely feel like we've been, um, I don't know how to say it, but basically the thing that we work on has become a kind of a popular topic over the past few months, as people are like, okay, we have these groups of people that we're working with in the jungle, and we can't talk to them anymore because we can't go in and see them, or vice versa. People who are living, out in isolated places are like, we can't bring our goods to market, so on and so forth. So what are the ways that communication and digital tools um, can help deal with the situation we're in? So in that sense, lots of people have been kind of asking us for advice, asking us for help
Hmm.
on sort of both sides of that, which has been really interesting. Hopefully, we'll be able to have kind of more impact as this consciousness is being raised in people around some of the issues around connectivity. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. And reflecting on your career so far, what would you say is, if you could identify a project or maybe multiple projects that you are particularly proud of, or um,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff that's happened over the years. I mean, I think our biggest accomplishment, our sort of thing that I get to hang my hat on, is having said that I participated in, is building this indigenous owned and operated cellular network in Mexico.
mhm.
That's a project that's been going on for the last almost 8 years, and has gone through many iterations and ups and downs and so on. I think kind of, I guess what I'm proud of on that is obviously having done it is cool, but sort of the perseverance that it takes. I think that's an important aspect of this conversation too. Is Rome wasn't built in a day, kind of thing. Things take time, and even if you kind of are failing at the beginning, but learning from that failure, it'll help you be successful later. And I think we've always tried to be, from a personal side, and also the folks that I work with at Rhizomatica, we've always tried to be open to self-criticism and to kind of learning as we go, and
Mhm.
not assuming that we are going to be able to figure out whatever it is we're trying to figure out at the beginning. So that's definitely, I guess, what I'm proud of about that is sort of the perseverance and the ability to learn and adapt over time, and just kind of keep plugging away at it and make it like slightly better every day. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And so, would you say is next for you now in your future plans?
No, it's a good question. I mean, actually, this year I was supposed to be on sabbatical, and then the pandemic happened, and I just kind of kept working. So I don't know. I mean, I've been spending more time trying to reflect on the work that we do, and writing and publishing. Um, just kind of trying to take a step back a bit from the day to day of the operational side of things. We have a lot of projects going on. I work with a ton of people on different projects, and it's just like days can go by where you're just in meetings all day. Um, and that's good because stuff is happening, but also how do you have the time to kind of recharge and reflect? And kind of I'm in somewhat of a period of trying to reflect on what we've done, what I've done over the past decade or more in this field, and also where I think things should be going, and also trying to gain a better understanding of kind of where the technological industry is moving, where the regulation and all that is moving. And that kind of requires time, time that you have when you're a student, but then once you're like in the thick of it, and you have a family and all these other things, you have less time to kind of just sit and contemplate and understand and reflect. So yeah, I mean, I see myself continuing on with this. We have some really exciting stuff that we're doing in South America, in the Amazon. So basically, a lot of my time now is trying to help get that project up and going. And that's exciting. Get to go hopefully soon. Also, get to go to some really cool places and work with some amazing people who are defending, some of the last natural places on Earth that all of us rely on to be able to breathe and survive on the planet. So kind of just feeling the weight of that and the responsibility is both daunting, but also kind of, I don't know, is reassuring somehow in that we're doing something important.
Definitely. That's amazing. We're looking forward to seeing what you do in the future and the next amazing projects that you work on. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and experiences, and not only talking about your work and your own projects, but also how you see the field of public interest tech and why it's important, and how students and people that are interested can get involved. Thank you for your time, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. I mean, I just want to say to everybody, especially the younger folks watching this, we're counting on you. Get involved, do something good. I mean, we need as many people on board as possible. We're in very tough times, not just politically, but civil in a civilizational sense. So yeah, hopefully, if anything I said was inspiring, or that you get involved, you stay involved, and you find a niche for yourself in public interest technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.